And you are live.
This is the committee of conference on the 2023 budget, and we are starting again. We did have, you had asked us about one section, and Senator Wesley has kind of researched it and wants to close it out, so we'll do that.
318.2 the expenditure. E318.2. It's different.
Oh, excellent. So the splitting, and we said
Yeah.
do the one and not do the other, the two both sides.
So we're both okay with 100.
Thank you.
Okay. Got that? Just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
And then we'll let you, if you have areas that you want to propose to us.
Yeah. Well, and the first, the one on the top of my pile here, I noticed is, maybe it, no, there it is. E 400.1, you struck our language which asked the joint, so this has to do with the UI modernization system. And our
like you could give them 3 million, then they had to come back. Is that
no.
That's a different.
No, this is it's 400.1. The heading is unemployment insurance, information technology, modernization, funding, semicolon reports. And all it did, so it's E 400.1. We wanted to ask Ledge Council to find out how other states are paying for updating their UI systems, and then asking for a report from the Commissioner of Labor on possibilities for how to pay for maintaining, how to pay for the UI system. So as you very well know, the federal government forever has been responsible for our UI system, has given us multiple millions of dollars to support that system. And in the past several years, we've realized that we're going to have to start using, right now, we're using ARPA dollars, but in the end, it's going to become general fund dollars at some point to maintain the system. And I think it would be interesting to know what other states are doing in these circumstances. And honestly, to maybe do something that is similar to what we currently do with workers' comp, which is there's a slight assessment on workers' comp premiums that are paid to the Department of Labor for maintaining the workers' comp system, so that the people who are using the system are helping to support the system. That is not what is suggested be here, but there is a question of how should we pay it going forward. And we think that's valuable information, rather than just assuming that we're just going to have to pay for it straight out of the general fund. So find out what other states are doing. That's the first half of it. And the second half is asking Department of Labor to come back to us with a proposal for what are some possibilities for paying for either the system itself or the, our administration of the system.
I think we were thinking that this is the kind of information that the Department of Labor would have readily available. They belong to national organizations and should be able to look at other mechanisms. And we actually talked about that. Some states have a similar assessment. We had some testimony to that exact. You obviously can't use trust fund dollars, but you can use a a fee or a surcharge or whatever you want to call it. So I think our thought was minimizing the work on our own staff, because just through national organizations, they should readily have this information to provide relative to other financing mechanisms that their colleagues around the country have utilized.
So that's a reason not to do A, but can we ask the Department of Labor to give us a report on what we ought to do? That's B.
Maybe you have a thought about that?
I don't think it could have hurt.
You need to modify it a little bit because it references subsection A.
Yeah.
But, you know, our thought was, that was something that we should expect the administrative agency to do that level
Well,
of
when they build,
research.
when they build the budget, they're gonna come with a proposal on a budget bill. And I would think at that point, the first question they're gonna get, what choices did you make between to come up with that choice? But they can't come up with a budget without trying to balance that budget. So it's a little of, you know,
We've got two things here, one of which is, this is the IT, and we
Yeah.
funded the IT.
Yeah.
This is a different, we're talking about two things related to UI. One, of course, was the $12 million plus that we're having to supplement the administration. And I think that's, and certainly when we were talking about surcharges and stuff, that's what I was thinking of, relative to the 12 million that has now defaulted to the general fund. But if we're funding, and we had already put in 25 million, right, on the UI modernization. So I think this was more a matter of, I don't know, sequencing, I think, or whatever, but do you remember our discussion better than?
Well, I think on the A part, you were, but on the timing of the UI.
We're already
Maintenance of-
appropriating money.
The maintenance piece, when do you need the maintenance piece? Is it for the new or is it for the existing?
I would like for there to be consideration of some source of revenue other than the general fund for the UI the use of the IT system. We are already paying for, and we're upgrading out of our ARPA and or GF dollars now, something that we have never done in the past. And I just don't want to continue down that path of, hey, it's now our problem. It's an important system. We want to do it right, but why does the general fund have to support it? And are there other mechanisms, not for standing up the big system, because we're already down that path, but going forward, there are going to be costs of maintaining and just running the IT portion of that system. Hopefully we're not going to ignore it for 25 years and let it crash, but annually there are going to be costs associated with that. How do we pay for it? Why should it be out of the general
I
fund?
suspect my bigger concern was picking up 12 million of administration. But you're back on just the
I know,
IT
it's smaller.
system and the annual operating costs of a system that we're trying to replace and modernize.
I'd be happy to pay for the administration in a different way too. And so if we could work on that to get at both ideas, that could be fabulous.
I would just say it's the normal job of the administration to propose a budget. They're going to propose a budget with the IT system in there and to cover the deficit. On the back side of that, I'm perfectly willing to say to them, what choices did you choose between to get to that decision? But they're going to want to, in January, present a budget with that balance. And I personally, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, want them to do that and put their best foot forward, and that's what they always do. I think it's perfectly appropriate for us to say to them, what choices did you make between? And I think that kind of gets at what you would like too.
So you're right, we should be asking those questions. Did we ask that this year? We
No.
just picked up a lot of those costs.
Yeah,
We just said, gotta do it, and we do have to do it. And so
You're
I
not
want to
talking
make
about
it happen.
administrative costs.
I was,
Oh,
I'm thinking both.
well,
It should be
I think
both.
we need
I
to
think
be
you're
clear,
right.
because this is only related to, technology. It isn't the fact that, and my reference to what other states have done, is really how they have avoided having those administrative costs picked up by the state. That's different than, we have, in our budget, Stephanie, and that's gonna be one of the questions, obviously, we funded the modernization.
You funded 5 within the actual ARPA and 25 in the contingent ARPA on the Senate side. The House did it entirely, 30 million in ARPA.
Yeah.
And what is the total estimated cost of that system?
Is that 30
I think
million?
it's at 30 million, they're now saying it may take longer.
I know, and that
Yeah,
cost
that's
is
a
the problem
different
with
issue.
ARPA deadline. So, if we fully funded it, then why this whole exercise about how we're gonna fund it when we already just did? I guess.
There are going to be costs both of the IT system going forward, and to your point, why not look at the whole
Well,
administration?
I would call those operational
Operational
costs, to be honest, when any upgrade in software, I mean, that happens routinely with any system. So if really what we're talking about is how we,
And you have options to fund admin and IT maintenance
Yeah.
on an ongoing.
But I would say it's the administration's job to make the first step forward, make the proposal. What they make for, I think to ask them, what choices did you choose between to get there will help us in our decision whether or not we approve what they do or whether we want to back up and do that. But they're running, they're the administrators. They ought to make the first step forward and say, here's what we would suggest, but give us the information about what you chose between.
all right, so basically what you would have is the Commissioner of Labor on January 15th shall propose in the budget submission, the funding mechanisms for, to address the
Right.
ongoing
And
maintenance.
but the
operating.
backup to that would be, you also tell us what you chose between to get to that
Well,
decision.
Yeah,
So I think
Would that help?
perhaps we need to
to
rewrite
rework this language.
it along the lines that we're talking about. So they would do a proposal and they would identify the various options, the advantages, disadvantages of each, and then what they're proposing, and it could very well be, we just continue to
With what
run our
we're doing.
$12 million.
Yeah, but, so we had said, hey, let's ask Wedge Council to do some research, you're saying not interested in that, so why not ask the Department of Labor to come up with a proposal for, and I would like to be explicit about that it's not necessarily from the general fund.
Yeah,
I just don't want that to be the
Right.
default.
Right, but I think it's fair to ask them what choices of different options did you look at? And we might back up and say, no, we think this other option.
Well, that's our language to have them propose.
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay, so let us try to perfect that.
All right, so, but you're in agreement that this is not, we, putting that first task
Yes,
onto our own
yeah,
staff.
I'm happy not to do that, yeah. Okay.
We try to be cautious about that, with all the different study committees and everything else floating around.
Very much appreciate that. And this next thing I'm passing around, we discussed yesterday, and I was doing it verbally because the document I had didn't show it really enough. So this has to do with the provider rate increases. I know you had some concerns with what we were proposing, but I'm just trying to be clear, so that you can see what we were proposing. We have enough here. Oh, give me one. So this is what, and as I mentioned, so let me just explain. What is underlined is what you propose, except for what is bolded, which is my editing of it. And then what is struck through is my editing. I don't know. So that would be our proposal. And as I said, we discussed it yesterday. I haven't tried to modify it from our conversation.
We have the, as defined by the state,
Yeah.
and they're substituting mutually agreed to.
Yeah. We had a conversation about, do we have to mutually agree? But I just want to put it back into the normal process for.
Well, I think probably if they're signing the agreement, it's mutual. Right?
The way you had it worded was the state was dictating the terms. It's the way I would interpret
You know,
it.
what the state was dictating was, that the state would define timely and accurate. That's the way I was reading it. In other words, shall be apparent through timely and accurate reporting defined by the state. In other words, the state would say what's timely, like 30 days after the end of the quarter. That kind of, that's what was, to me, that was how we were reading it. In other words, if you look at the sequence, it said, so through timely and accurate reporting as defined by the state. So timely and accurate, you know, I guess we could say, if an agency said, well, I don't want to do 30 days, I want 60 days, or I want something, I don't know. So it's referencing timely and accurate reporting. So.
In the language that you've amended here, I have a little confusion, because I think what you mean is that the provider agreement will be created by a mutual agreement. In other words, they'll be consulted on what will be in the agreement, then they sign it. And here, I think James reading is a possible one, which is that when they sign, they're mutually agreeing, but you're looking for a different thing. So
An engagement during the process.
I'm wondering, and I was thinking about this last night, if we could shift to language of consultation that we sometimes use. So the provider agreement would be created by the state with consultation of the stakeholders, so that it's clear that they're being consulted. But I think the sticking point is who's in charge of the final wording. So that would be my suggestion, is to say that shall be transparent in the use of these funds through timely and accurate reporting through a provider agreement created by the state in consultation with stakeholders. Or, so that.
I guess what we're asking is, what is subject to mutual agreement? And we were thinking timely and accurate probably is what the administrative agency needs to do reports and get back information, and that would be prescribed. And I guess it's the master agreement, the provider agreement. It's got to be some standardized. Everybody's got to be reporting the data in the same timely way. So I guess I'm not clear what you mean by mutually agreed to. Is it, there should be mutual agreement when you should file your report and that it should be accurate?
So let's see if I can think of an example. An entity, the state, could say, under your wording, I want timely and accurate reporting tomorrow. And not taking into account my ability as a provider, that in order to get that report together, I need 30 days. The way yours is you're putting all of the power in the state's hand to say tomorrow, end of discussion. And I want to make sure that there is consultation, that there is communication about what is possible.
Are you hearing from the DAs? Is it because they're concerned about the language?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so the
they-
concern is coming from them?
I'm not making this up.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know whether it was, sometimes we obsess over language and how it's constructed and parse it and so forth.
Yeah.
And so somehow the concern is that there would be arbitrary conditions put on the DAs, and they're trying to not feel powerless in that process, or if something is totally unrealistic.
That has not been expressed to me precisely in that way, but that is a perfect summation of what I understand the problem to be. And that was what I was trying to address. I think if you think back to what we've heard from the Dale side of the DA shop as they were trying to move to payment reform, they were really struggling with the requirements that were being placed on them in terms of time. I think some of it was indeed timely and accurate reporting, and they were just saying, we can't do this. We can't shift in the way the state is asking us to shift in this time frame.
And you said you floated this by the agency?
Yes, I asked both the agency and Care Partners if what I've shown you here was acceptable, and I was told by both that it was. I can share that email. I can forward those emails to you if you would like.
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, if
Yeah.
you want to know the truth.
I-
If
Yeah.
they
I
feel
have-
that it can work for them, I think we just, we want to be, I think what we're saying is, these funds represent a very significant budgetary increase. And comes with that is the transparency about what this level of infusion of dollars really means. And so if they feel that they can get agreement and they, it's just, there may be times when you say, if you want the money, this is a requirement. And I don't want to anyway convey that everything is going to be
Subject to.
subject to mutual agreement. That's the concern that I have.
I have a quick suggestion for language.
Well, we were very happy to have your input.
Okay, so provider rate increases, recipients of any increased rates under section of this
You
act.
eliminated some of the sections
Yeah, there was
too.
a whole bunch.
Yeah, and my impression was that they all weren't necessary.
That is true.
Yeah,
We had all the home care pieces that are, the long-term care,
Oh,
transfer care pieces in there. These are the DS and the mental health.
okay.
Okay, so it would be, shall be transparent in the use of these funds through timely and accurate reporting, period. The state, in consultation with the provider community, shall determine the specifics of reporting along with specific performance measures using existing data collected by providers to ensure accountability to the clients and the system.
What is it using existing data? One might think that, in fact, we're going to have some new data based on the impact that these funds had.
That was the underlying language, and
Yes, it
honestly,
was.
I don't remember.
Well, I'm just
Well, I think
concerned.
that it's opposed to collecting new, a requirement to go get new,
Yeah,
a mandate.
I understand, um. I don't, they can't reprogram and add new data fields. That's what I'm concerned about. The term existing data sort of seems very static to me. When we're trying really to evaluate the impact of the rates. How about using data collected, get rid of existing?
You wrote this
I don't
section.
know, maybe I did.
Well, I don't know if you, but the Senate proposed
Yeah,
this.
using existing data, but now I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
We should never go back, because every time you look at something,
Yeah.
you say, how did that happen?
I believe what Senator Baruch suggested captures what we were trying to say.
Okay,
My-
so we'll end after reporting and then start a new sentence.
You could-
Yeah, here.
The state in, after reporting period.
Yeah.
The state, in consultation with the provider community, shall determine the specifics of reporting along with specific.
And then it just goes
Performance
back to
measures.
the existing.
Yeah, Stephanie.
Yeah, it brings up.
Yeah, and we probably just want to double check that we're not saying something that creates a
Yeah.
whole new.
In our effort to wordsmith, we
Yeah,
completely
Always,
pulled it out.
always dangerous.
Okay, all right.
Um. Yesterday,
Did we close that?
so if we agree on that language, can
Can we close it out, like that's what I'm saying, and that's
What's the number?
301.3, it's on the third page, right up third from the top, provider rate increases,
Yeah.
performance, alternative language from the House, and now we've got alternative language from the committee of conference. Okay, so we can close that out based on that rewrite.
Yesterday, I, mentioned the request that I've received from the Defender General about the.
Oh, moving it from one
Yeah.
DCF appropriation.
Yeah, well, and further evolved, so the thought is in 2019, we moved the so-called family reunification project from the Defender General's office to the Department of Children and Families. And the suggestion is to move it back to the DG now. And what I am passing out just shows that movement. It's $150,000. It does indeed exist in the DCF offers. In the sections that I guess are in yellow there, you can see where those are the changes. And so the policy question is, where should the money be? Right now, it was originally with the Defender General. We sent it to DCF. There is a concern that we're losing track of it in DCF. DCF grants it back to the Defender General. So why not just give it to the DG's office instead of doing this transfer back and forth?
And you talked to those DCF folks and.
Yes. Yes, we have, so they confirmed that that money is there and that they granted to the Defender General.
Do you remember why that was done?
I remember why, it was a me thing,
You did it?
I did it. So come full circle, the Defender
You're on
General.
record.
Yes, and I was really concerned that year. He could not make his budget work within the money that he had. And so he was prioritizing, and he said, I have a legal obligation to provide defense. I do not have a legal obligation to do this. It's more important to me to have a lawyer than this service because of my legal obligations. And I'm not gonna let you do that. I'm gonna put it somewhere where you can't touch it, and suggested moving it to DCF. I'm smiling because that was a workaround, but it maybe in the long run. And
So the money is always going back to the Defender
Yes.
General.
And the concern is, and I don't know if you've been experiencing this, there's been so much turnover in DCF that there's not this historical knowledge, and there may not be this. It took them a while to figure out where the money was and that it was there indeed. And there's just, he is concerned that there always be that access to it and they be able to provide these services. And it just does feel a little cleaner and smoother.
So this isn't this isn't a disagreement, you're coming up with a new request here.
Yeah, I am. You weren't supposed to notice that.
So I can't cross anything
No,
off.
you can't.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
no, I'm just trying to take something off my list.
I see.
Yeah.
Well,
You
we
could,
should talk about, I mean, it seems like it's kind of circular the way it's set up right now.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't involve any more money.
yeah,
Um,
it does not. It's not a request for new spending. Okay, so here's another one that is, I will try to be clear and understandable on this. So as you know, in the, it must have been the budget adjustment. This year's budget adjustment, Kimberly, this year's budget adjustment for the transit, yeah. We were addressing the issue of the general assistance housing and the emergency housing and creating the new transitional housing program. And we said in the BAA, go through emergency rulemaking, file your new rules to create this new transitional housing program. And back then, I think we were all delighted to, with the knowledge that the federal ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program, was going to enable us to have a transitional housing program that would run through FY25.
Yeah, but they caught that.
Exactly. So we thought we had a 2-year period of running this.
Don't we still want to get the program and use those dollars?
Absolutely. But the concern is, what we are hearing is, if you look at the burn rate on the ERAP dollars, they are going to be gone. There is a high degree of possibility they will be gone in the fourth quarter of FY23. So this transitional housing program we created
We're
that
talking
we
about
thought,
March to June of
Yeah.
23.
yeah. So not that far away. We thought, we knew that until a few weeks ago, we knew we had a transitional program that was going to work for a couple of years. We don't know that anymore. And we think the General Assembly should have some engagement with how is this going to be resolved, rather than it just happening. And so what we are proposing is that DCF do what a lot of the state agencies have been doing, which is file emergency rulemaking And then, which lasts for 18 months, 180 days, so half a year. 180 days, which they have done, but they may need to do it again, and they may need to have a different rule depending on what happens with the money and with the program.
So the letter that they sent out to the beneficiary saying you're eligible for like $21,000, did that meet the test of obligating it?
It did, but so we've taken care of the immediate problem, but what we're hearing from DCF is that the that the money's going to be gone. And we need to, and so what this is saying is, we've already filed one emergency rule, there should be a second rule, and we're just becoming engaged in that
Well, so you want
process.
to participate at the joint fiscal
I think
30 days before September meeting.
Yeah, trying to get some eyes on it. And an understanding, and also they've had this very, very successful general assistance working group, and engaging those people. I'm sorry for me talking so much, I was just trying to explain.
And where did this come from? ACF requesting it?
No, we're proposing it. We have talked with DCF about.
I assume that you must be getting the request from somewhere.
Yes, DCF would like 2 sets of emergency rules. I floated that idea by them and they thought that was great. And they came back with the first paragraph, which was, essentially having a second bite. And then we, as Chair Hoover said, some engagement on behalf of the General Assembly.
So this language has been reviewed and reflective of DCF's position and the administration. I'm just.
Kimberly, did you?
Yeah, the first paragraph has been, the General Assembly engagement has not been.
We can ship the whole thing over to them.
I know that we're gonna have to do something. This is giving them a authority to do a second round of emergency rulemaking, which they really are gonna need. So I think probably before saying yes. we ought to
Think about it,
have
yeah.
No, well, I think we need to have it reviewed by the agency and by DCF. Around the
Was
rulemaking.
Katie the drafter, is she the holder of the electronic version of
She
this?
is.
Okay.
So the fundamental issue
Do you have a
that,
copy?
oh, sorry, there were more over here, I'm sure.
I'll get it back.
Oh, there is more.
Okay.
Yeah, I just gave mine.
What
Do you need more than one?
what I am particularly concerned about
I have all set.
is that this program not expire and us know what is happening. Last year, when I thought the pandemic was going away and last summer things would be back to normal, we didn't have a kind of a fail-safe. And you'll recall, in fact, we were still in the terrible midst of it. And at the same time, DCF was thinking that they were needing to remove people from the housing program because there wasn't an alternative plan. And we really scrambled hard. Senator Kitchell, you'll remember some conversations we had with AHS about what are you going to do? But we had no formal way of having that conversation. So I'm trying to formalize that. That's a lot of the impetus of this, is to avoid last year's experience. So, move on.
So that's another one we can't.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what, I need to find something that we can all say yes to. I have another one that is, we want to go back to our language.
Yes.
So this is in C 107. which is, has to do with the one-time nurse scholarships. And I'm gonna
It's
stop
not
talking.
one-time.
Peter,
Sure.
Peter. I'm hearing you
No
there.
problem. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It is. It's not nominal. There
C 107.
you are.
Give me one.
Oh, sorry.
Just give away.
So right now at the Department of Health, there is roughly nursing scholarship fund carry forward. 387 plus, what's that? $550,000 in carry forward money, 170 of which is general fund money for the nursing scholarships. After projected use for this year, there should be a balance at the end of FY '22 of roughly $1,605,189. That money without carry forward language is stalled there and cannot be used for anything unless we take action.
Carry forward authority on this?
Now, I have checked with joint fiscal, you struck this whole thing, I have checked with joint fiscal and Jen Carvey, both recommended reinserting the language.
This is not new money.
No,
You're
It is
saying
not.
it's just money that has not been expended in
Correct.
this current fiscal year.
correct,
We're speaking to the $1 million general fund.
correct.
And general fund would be covered under the carry forward authority.
That's my question.
Because I did talk to Jen Carvey, who looked at it, and did say,
Jen might not know about how the mechanics of how we deal with carry forward from a budgeting perspective.
So global commitment would not carry forward, but general fund would carry forward under the authority you give in budget
But
adjustment.
it is global commitment, it says. 2 million.
Of these general funds.
so it was a total of $2 million general funds. So
So what are we trying to carry forward? The general fund amount or the global commitment amount? Because we don't normally carry forward global commitment. We would
Right, it's just-
it would come up again in the budget adjustment as a,
Yep.
rethink.
Yes.
But if we want to carry forward the unexpended general fund, that would happen automatically, pretty much. If we get to carry forward the authority, report, but
This is a
Typical.
one-time general fund appropriation. It says, it says of these funds, $1 million for expenditure in 22 and 23. It's all written, so it's general fund.
it is because it's a one-time general fund appropriation.
yes,
So that's-
these were one-time general fund appropriations.
Yeah.
It was to get the scholarship really going. And it did. Presuming that a bill passes that has the new name for the scholarship, I'm not gonna tell you what it is, we'll get it wrong. Some type of forgivable loan.
So we would need language to redeploy these unexpended money to a new program, the newly named program, but we don't need it to
And if
carry
you read
forward.
down at the end, it says be available to the forgivable loan incentive program, which is the nursing scholarship that will be established in 18 VSA 34.
But right now, it's not an established
It
program.
is not, it is
Was
it
in
is
the
House Bill
House,
703, which is now Senate Bill 11.
which we don't have a Senate version of
No,
yet.
we don't.
We
And
just
this-
want to make sure
This is
the
where
money,
Jen Carvey told me to put the 18 VSA 34.
And you would, when there is a decision on that new program, you would want to be able to say, the money, you would want the language that allows these dollars to, if the decision collectively is to
Put it there.
assume this program into the next program that you're setting up,
Which
you
it
want
is.
that language, but you don't need it for the carry forward
Is this
explicitly.
Is this the one that they're gonna put through APEC, the forgivable loan incentive?
This one would be run by VSAC. Yes, this one is run by VSAC, Department of Health and VSAC. They work together to determine the amount of scholarships on an annual basis. Last year it was
But it's
$6,000.
just forgivable loan.
That is correct. It is a scholarship that turns into a forgivable loan The scholarship is required to be paid back with 1 year of work per 1 year of scholarship funds received.
That's based on what you passed in 703.
Correct.
And I don't know what we're gonna have. And so we can't make a
If you
decision
wanna
on
hold
that
it,
until
yeah.
we know whether this program actually gets in.
Right. Right.
But it does have here though, global commitment program.
Yeah, because the money goes to the global commitment program to be matched up and turned
I know,
into
I
a
understand
bigger
that.
2.27.
But you were saying global commitment, we do need language, general fund, we don't.
So if we don't normally carry forward global commitments then into our,
Right.
automatically tend to carry forward general fund.
So this is global commitment.
No, this is the general fund appropriation. It was made to the global commitment program.
Yes.
All right, so we're talking about the general fund that would be subject to our carry forward.
Yes.
So we don't need carry forward.
And it was struck because you didn't need carry forward and the Senate didn't have a 703, it still doesn't.
Right.
Version of the world.
Right, except that if, once, upon its passage, assume it does pass, if it doesn't pass, there is no nurse scholarship. So upon its passage, we will need to attach these funds to that statute.
The underlying existing Act 155 program doesn't continue to
It's
exist.
session law.
It-
I discovered 2 years ago that we neglected to put it in statute. I carried it forward again in session law. And then this year I put in a bill to make it statute. That bill got subsumed into 703, which is now been subsumed into S11. And this is where we are. So those funds, because it's all session law, the scholarship money will not, scholarships won't continue forward unless something passes this year. And this money then gets attached to that new program.
So let me
It's
ask, the other one was just a pure scholarship program.
It was called the scholarship, except for this FY22, it will be called the forgivable loan.
But it was scholarship.
It was a
Yes, it
scholarship.
was
The
scholarship.
intent is the same. Because they have to
No,
work it all.
No. Well, if under the old rules, it was a pure scholarship, that requirement that you just talked about didn't exist. It was added when you created this program.
The requirement under the old was a scholarship, but you had to work a year in order to get it.
You get,
You had to do one year of work in the state of Vermont to receive 1 year of scholarship fund. That's the way it was structured when it in Act 155, the original, the genesis of the concept.
usually your scholarship is to pay while you're in school, not while you're working. No, I'm sequencing them, I'm in a hard
So it
time.
was conditional.
Yes.
At the end of the day, maybe we just need to hold this.
Yeah, I
and
think
see
we do,
what
because I don't know
happens
what's
with
gonna
the-
come out of
Yeah.
703, and whether the program will be as this anticipates. So I guess,
Hold.
Yeah, we'll hold it. in that
so
way.
this is an addition to.
No, we had it, you struck it, we want it back.
But you may not need it back depending on what happens in 703.
As long as it is indeed the case that the GF carries forward without us having to say anything, but we're a little bit worried that it won't because of the change in the name.
And we will need
For
to
the
attach the funds that are sitting in the Global Commitment Office to the scholarship, to the forgivable loan program or scholarship, whichever you care to call it. We'll need to attach those funds to the program.
It's a really great idea. We want to make sure it works.
Yes.
And maybe we can, when the time comes, we'll just make sure JFO does their good
Usually
thoughtful
a
work.
scholarship is not a forgivable loan. A loan is a loan and then
So-
you meet the requirements and then it's forgiven. So that's why I'm having a hard time.
This was set up exactly the same way as the National Guard scholarship was set up. That you had to commit to service
Yeah.
in order to receive it. And that's the same way here, you have to commit to service in order to receive it.
Except the guard, you know who your employer is. I'm not sure if I'm in college, I know who my employer is gonna be. I mean, it was a recruitment tool to specifically to get you to the guard as opposed to your potential employer, but we'll just have to hold it considering the fate of 703 S11 is still up in the air.
I wanted to say that we could agree to the 700 where you struck the funding for the environmental justice position.
Oh, yeah, this one's already.
But we can't because it's not through, I mean, it's the same argument. We'll have to hold it. We're just about ready to put the funding for this in S148. That's where we're going when we're finished here. But when we do that, then we should take it out of here, or when we pass it, we should take it out.
And we've got the same thing with the 285.
Which one is?
That's 285, I think that's the 5 million
Oh.
versus 4.5, and that appropriation
Yeah.
is now travel. We had it in our bill, the
Yep.
appropriation.
And we put it
You
in.
put it
ours.
in, so the appropriation, whether it's 5 million, 4.5, whatever language, will be dealt with in 285.
Yes, yes.
But we have it on here because you had the 4 million in your
Yeah,
budget.
yeah.
You don't want to close that out yet either.
Well, the same issue. It
Yeah.
needs to get.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the problem with this whole bill, is so many things, or the fingers are into other bills. I don't have anything else for you. We don't have anything else for you. We did that one, and, yeah.
We do have a technical letter from the administration, and I think there's a few things that we would benefit from having Ms. Cochrane weigh in on from the technical letter. If you wanted to walk through the technical letter at the conference, or if you're at the end of your session.
Do you have to go back to committee?
We are back in committee. I haven't reviewed well, I've read it, but haven't comprehended the technical letter.
Not all of them,
Yeah.
most of them are straightforward, but there's a few in there that would help with the committee discussion a little bit.
Oh.
Particularly the substance use, PH80 markup and how you envision that versus what it would, we want to walk through those pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't, considering it's 5:04, you probably want to get back to.
I am concerned about getting, but
And then Stephanie, if you can identify, some of these are just purely,
Yeah.
move it from here to here or something like that, but the ones that we need to discuss, we could start out doing that the next
we
time.
can do that the next time we meet. I wish that we had more to give you, but to a large degree, we're just,
Everything is contingent on other things that are happening elsewhere, so we understand that, including the final revenue box.
Yes. at the end of the day, that's the most important one.
Yeah, because
Everything else
things can
comes
move
together.
quite quickly.
Yeah.
We have that. Okay. All right, you were gonna check with DCF on this language, or I just wanted to check who is gonna do that?
I sent it to DCF and Chair,
Oh, good.
and they will, I told them to get back to me at
Oh.
they're usually pretty quick.
That's wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice to have you here to help staff us out. All right, so I think then in light of the hour and the fact that you've got to go back, I'm going to adjourn the meeting for today, and we should think about when we want to get back tomorrow, which is Friday, believe it or not. And then we may have to think about when we're meeting Monday.
Yeah, and just back to what will we have, what can we act on?
I know.
I'm inclined to think we're not gonna have anything of substance by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
No, I
That's
think
not
your
useful.
instincts are absolutely right on that. Shall we try for 1 o'clock then? Okay. All right. So we will adjourn and tentatively 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.